On today's Solo Thursday news, the wrestling world reacts to the passing of Steve Mongo McMichael. An NXT name has been discussed for a main roster call-up. There's an update on Bryan Danielson's AEW status, and a TNA star departs the company. Hello and welcome to WhatCulture Wrestling with myself, Andrew Pollard. I hope you're well. I hope you're good. I hope your week is treating you as well as possible. Now, we start things today with the very sad news of the passing of Steve Mongo McMichael yesterday at the age of 67 following a 4-year battle with ALS, that is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a disease that affects nerves in the brain and the spine. This sad news, it was announced by Jarrett Payton, the son of Mongo's Chicago Bears teammate Walter Payton. Earlier on Wednesday, Jarrett announced that Mongo had entered hospice care, which was sadly followed by the news he passed away later in the day, Wednesday afternoon. I believe it was around 5:30 p.m. local time. A Hall of Fame defensive tackle and part of the 1985 Super Bowl winning Chicago Bears team, Mongo was better known to wrestling fans for his time, of course, in WCW in the 90s. Hey, I am not going to claim that I know anything about the NFL and about American football, but you don't win a Super Bowl or get into a Hall of Fame unless you're a pretty great player. But I do like to think I know a little bit more about wrestling, at least. And with that, Mongo came into WCW in 1995 as a commentator, although he'd actually appeared for the then WWF earlier that year as part of Lawrence Taylor's rivalry with Bam Bam Bigelow that culminated, of course, at WrestleMania 11. But Mongo came into WCW in 95, was initially part of a really fun commentary team with Eric Bischoff and the legendary Bobby the Brain Heenan. Mongo, in his role, he was typically, at that point in time anyway, he was the babyface commentator, bringing a nice spark and energy to broadcast. Plus, of course, he had Pepe with him, his chihuahua, and I'm always here for a good doggo. And Pepe, man, Pepe had the best outfits. I even saw an old clip a couple of weeks ago where Pepe, there was some beef with Ric Flair during one of Nature's promos that just got a chuckle out of me, man. That popped me. But yeah, speaking of Ric Flair, Mongo would step into the ring in 1996, the Great American Bash, actually, teaming with Kevin Green to go up against Flair and Arn Anderson. That was Mongo's first ever match, and he turned heel in that first ever match. And not only that, but that heel turn would see Mongo join the Four Horsemen, forming a version of that iconic faction. At that point in time, it was Mongo, Flair, Anderson, and Chris Benoit. He'd also be part of the Horsemen when Kurt Hennig joined, and then also later when Dean Malenko was part of the group. Now, was Mongo the best in-ring worker? Not exactly, but you could always tell that he was just, absolutely busting his ass to try and do as well as he could. And again, he was an entertaining performer, and that means so much in the world of professional wrestling. That in-ring career would also see him have a short run as the US champion, the WCW US champion, beating Jeff Jarrett for that belt in 1997, then losing it to Kurt Hennig a few weeks later. Now, Mongo would leave WCW in, 1999, and that was pretty much it for his wrestling career, bar a 2008 TNA appearance where he'd referee a four-way Monsters Ball tag team match. It was, Beer Money versus the Dudleys versus LAX versus Abyss and Matt Morgan. There we go. The amount of random stuff in my head. Anyway, following the news of Mongo's passing, Ric Flair was one of the first people to pay tribute to his friend, taking to X to describe Mongo as his best friend and an amazing athlete and an amazing human. Sting posted about how he was grateful for the last few conversations he'd had with Mongo about this life and a life to come. WWE's Adam Pearce paid tribute to Mongo's work ethic, rebel spirit, and his ability to entertain. The Blue Meanie as well talked fondly about some time he got to spend with Mongo at a wrestling convention. And Missy Hyatt as well was another who posted about Mongo's magnetic personality. It's just a really sad time, man. Whenever you have to report on these situations, and you just say, I mean, it goes without saying that the thoughts of us all here at WhatCulture Wrestling go out to the family, friends, and fans of Steve Mongo McMichael at this time. May he rest well.
Thanks so much for watching this video and supporting our channel. You know who else support our channel? Surfshark, who are sponsoring all of our WrestleMania content from here in Las Vegas. Surfshark's VPN is amazing. You can make sure all of your stuff stays private and secure when you're out and about online, and they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Not only that, but it allows you to change your virtual location to access all of your favorite content, which means you can watch all of WWE shows on Netflix, not just Raw, but SmackDown and NXT too, with no ads. And you get to see all the bonus content us Brits get to see too. Stuff like this. Booyaka! Booyaka! 619! Just click the link in the description and use code WhatCultureMania at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN.
Right, there is no way to transition or segue from that, so let's just get to our next story, which is NXT's Tony D'Angelo being discussed for a main roster call-up. Now, Yesterday, there were reports of Trick Williams expected to make the main roster jump, and that Lola Vice was another one who'd been discussed for a move to Raw or SmackDown. And today, from Corey Hayes of BodySlam.net and Mass J of PW Nexus, comes word that Tony D is another name in the frame for a call-up. I mean, if that were to happen, that leaves all sorts of questions, not least could that Tony D'Angelo gimmick, as it is, work on the main roster? While the whole family stuff, it works fine, just about, in the world of NXT, which at times can be a bit daft, but hey, I am all here for some of that daftness, to be fair. But you'd have to think the whole mob boss stuff will need a bit of tweaking for Tony D to work on a Raw or a SmackDown. Also, who goes with Tony? I mean, obviously, Stacks recently turned on Tony, so they're set for a match or two. There's no more sit-downs now. Luca Cristofino was seemingly whacked in the desert on Tuesday, and Rizzo has been sent to a safe house. Is Luca dead? Does Stacks do the unthinkable and whack Rizzo? Tune in on next week's NXT to find the answers to these burning questions. But I mean, maybe Luca joined Stacks rather than got whacked. Maybe Rizzo turns her back on Tony to side with Stacks, which frees Tony up as a singles act to head to the main roster. A loser leaves NXT match, maybe. Either way, in-ring wise, I mean, Tony D'Angelo is more than ready for that call-up. The dude is a beast when he gets going. Obviously, playing into his real-life amateur wrestling background. And character-wise, I mean, the gimmick might need a bit of tweaking, but Tony himself is a phenomenal performer at what he does. Like, seriously, this dude, to me, this is a dude who could well have an acting career if he wanted to focus more on that. But anyways, I know he has done a bit of acting, of course. But anyways, Tony D'Angelo, he could well be on Raw or SmackDown sooner rather than later. And as ever, let us know in the comments which NXT stars you'd like to see called up in the next couple of weeks. Now, switching gears a little and switching focus to AEW and more specifically to Bryan Danielson. During a recent appearance on the Way of the Blade podcast, AEW president Tony Khan was asked about the status of the American Dragon, to which Tony said how Bryan is still a big part of the company, a big part of his office, to be precise. That was the wording he used. Danielson, he might be retired for good, but he's never told Tony that he's fully retired, and there is hope that he'll be able to wrestle again at some point in the future. Tony said how he talks to Bryan almost every day, talked up Bryan's mind for the business, and also talked about how much of a great leader he is. So, for those hoping for another match or two from Bryan Danielson, you're telling us there's a chance. Fingers crossed. Of course, Danielson last wrestled in October at Wrestle Dream, where he lost to Jon Moxley, Plastic Bags, the Wheeler Yuta turn, and that was, I guess, basically the night that the Death Riders, as we know it, really became Death Riders. But the less said about the Death Riders, the better. Oh, no. Right, let's finish things up here. Wrapping things up today, and as first reported by Fightful Select, Alan Angels is no longer with TNA Wrestling. Now, Angels hadn't been featured on TNA TV for getting on for nearly 6 months now. I believe it was November, but he has still been listed on the company's official roster. But however, Fightful confirmed that Angels was one of several talents released by TNA in December after his previous contract expired. Now, this departure was described as an amicable one, and Angels himself has since taken to X to thank TNA and talk about how it was a dream to wrestle for the promotion. Alan Angels has been busy over the past few months, though, man, working for the likes of Revolver and Prestige, and he's now as well, I think it was actually yesterday it was announced, or maybe even this morning, that he's going to be facing old Mansa, Mance Warner, for GCW on Sunday, May the 4th, which, hey, it's my birthday. Send me some birthday well wishes. But Alan Angels, talented fella, always seems like a really good dude as well, so best of luck to him with whatever is next. As mentioned, there is 4th of May where he'll be going for GCW against Mance Warner, which old Mansa man always brings entertainment, always brings the brutality. And with that, that brings today's solo Thursday news to a close. This has been WhatCulture Wrestling. I've been Andrew Ballard. I believe normal services resume tomorrow with the regular weekday fellas all back from Las Vegas and coming at you from the usual studio setup, rather than getting weekday news from myself here in ever sunny Wrexham. And so, with that said, be well, be safe, and I will catch you down the road.